It's the 26th of May and I'm Tom Glass and welcome to The Roast. Now, in response to the growing criticism of the federal budget, the government and its allies have begun to criticise the critics. Really makes you think, why are we all so critical? I mean, why can't we all just get along and love one another and respect one another? And then you remember the federal budget and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Tonight, it's our third consecutive week of rolling budget coverage. Just every day you wake up and it's budget, budget, budget. Same thing, night and day, in and out. What if it's Groundhog Day? Then I could die and it wouldn't matter because I'd be back tomorrow. In fact, let's check this out, okay? No, it's real. First, Mark Humphries has the headlines. And I need a painkiller.
Tony Abbott, Prime Minister of Australia and mascot for 40 Winks, has told the arts community that the budget cuts to the arts could have been far worse if it wasn't for one man.
Arts Minister George Brandis substantially protected arts funding and in so doing has made himself deeply unpopular with all his colleagues.
Yeah, the government must really hate it when the Arts Minister protects the arts. If it's any comfort, George, you're also deeply unpopular with a large section of the public.
People do have a right to be bigots, you know.
Abbott made the comments at the Australian Book Industry Awards, wearing the glasses Kevin Rudd apparently left at the lodge. Abbott assured those in attendance that the arts are important.
We do wish to work with you as closely as we humanly can to try to ensure that our country continues to be a creative nation.
And there's no better way to ensure our continued creativity than by cutting arts funding by $60 million over 4 years. But don't worry, there's still some taxpayer money supporting the arts.
More than $15,000 of taxpayers' money was spent on a second custom-built bookcase to house George Brandis's extensive collection of books and law reports.
People do have a right to bookcases, you know. Liberal Senator Bill Heffernan has brought a fake pipe bomb into Parliament House to highlight the building's recent decrease in security. Well done, Bill. Now put the bomb down. Heffernan believes the building is no longer secure, and I agree, Bill, there are security risks. I heard there's a senator who once tried to take a knife into state parliament.
Bill Heffernan tried to take knife into Parliament.
During Senate estimates, Heffernan detailed how someone might easily blow up Parliament House, recalling an anecdote from his childhood.
We could blow a tree the size of this building out of the ground.
Begging the question, what tree is the size of Parliament House? I'm guessing that's not the only pipe Bill has been bringing into Parliament. To Italy now, where prostitution and illegal drug sales are set to be included in the country's GDP figures. And who said GDP figures aren't sexy? It's hoped the accounting change will help Italy avoid breaching its deficit limit. So next time an Italian person snorts cocaine off a sex worker's bottom, they'll know they're helping another bottom, Italy's bottom line. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. Well, back to the budget. Now, it appears that the federal budget may struggle to make it through the Senate unblocked. A concern for the government, but a relief for the majority of Australians who think many of the budget measures are more painful than stabbing your leg. And I should know. Even senior government MPs have described it as the stinking carcass around the government's neck. And like a butcher with an unrefrigerated market stall, they now have to try to sell that stinking carcass to the Senate.
The Abbott government is facing an early budget shortfall because it has no hope of passing many of its key measures through the existing Senate.
No hope? Geez, what a bleak outlook. It's almost like they're being affected by the budget. Because while it's all well and good for the government to create a budget that lets us start saving money, it needs to be passed to actually be implemented. If it isn't, then it just remains as useful as the empty plans of an impractical madman.
Okay, so if we want that fun family holiday, we're going to need to save $1,200 each week. But I figured out a family budget so we can make this work. Okay, so first spending cut, we're going to replace Grandma's arthritis pills with Tic Tacs, because it's all in her head anyway, isn't it? Okay, you can do that one. And Lukey, darling, we're going to need to pull you out of school because all you need is street smarts. That's right. And finally, our weekly groceries are going to be replaced by nothing. Oh yeah, got to get our beach bodies, isn't that right, kids? Especially you, honey. Okay, and we only need to keep this up for 12 weeks.
And with parties lining up to oppose the budget in the Senate, Tony Abbott isn't backing down like some sort of sensible politician. When he gets repeatedly knocked down by the world and almost everyone in it, he gets up again like he's an inflatable clown punching bag and he goes even bigger.
Abbott said he was confident the government would get the budget through the Senate in the end because the alternative would be a double dissolution election.
Basically, he is daring the minor parties to go an election, telling Talkback Radio,
if there was an election again, hardly any of them would win their seats.
And he's right, if by them he means the coalition, because polls show Labor ahead of the coalition by 56% to 44% on a two-party preferred basis, which makes Tony Abbott either our country's most fearless Prime Minister or its second worst negotiator.
We've got you surrounded. There's snipers on every rooftop and police on every corner within a square kilometre. So why don't you just surrender peacefully?
No, you don't. I can see that it's just you down there.
No, I have backup. They're just well camouflaged. And I'm heavily armed.
No, you're not. That's not even a real gun. It's just your fingers making a gun shape.
Don't make me shoot you.
Look, can you just get me my $1 million and call me a helicopter so I can get out of here?
Okay, I'm calling them now. Hang on. Hello, Chief? I need a chopper.
You don't even have a real phone. That's your gun hand.
Oh, for...
Tell you what, I'll just come down these stairs and I'll walk right past you and you just let me go, okay?
Don't you come down here. Stop. Don't you walk down that street. You get out of it. Get out of it. Don't get on that bus. Don't you sit on that bus. That seat is for old people.
You know what? I think Tony Abbott might actually be worse than that guy, because at least that guy tried to hide the fact that he was bluffing. We'll be right back.
Have you ever tried to bluff your way through a tricky situation only to be undermined by facts? How long did you think no one would notice you had no negotiating power? Did you think it would be longer than a second? Why? We'd love to hear about it at the Roast TV or hashtag RoastTV.
And with the budget being heavily criticised by the public, by people in opposition and by people in the government who would wish they were still in the opposition, Treasurer Joe Hockey has begun responding to that criticism the only way he knows how. Clearly and with perfect grammar.
No government never pledges to never increase any tax at any point.
Now, Mr. Hockey, I would never suggest that you don't not understand yourself, but that is incorrect. Still, the Treasurer is right about one thing. Governments never pledge to never raise taxes. Only people trying to get into government do that.
We are about reducing taxes, not increasing taxes. We are about getting rid of taxes, not imposing new taxes.
Remember when you were in opposition and you could say that kind of thing without it being a lie? So while the budget has drawn a lot of criticism from many different sectors, and then those criticisms have been criticised by other sectors, who is critiquing the critics of the critics?
Is it Margaret Pomerantz?
No.
No, of course not. She's far too busy trying to convince me to care about Australian cinema. It had its chance with the story of the Kelly gang. You know, you got some nerve, Charles Tate, making a film before there was even a Hoyts.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Margaret Pomerantz, Nick.
Right.
And stop critiquing the critics. Leave that to Jazz Twemlow.
Criticism of the Budget Critics' Critics with your host, Jazz Twemlow.
Good evening and welcome to a look at my review of a new and pointless genre currently sweeping the country. Critics of the budget. First up tonight, Tony Abbott, who showed an aptitude for comedy when he signed on for the role of Minister for Women, took on those who criticised his changes to the New Start allowance.
People have no right to hold out for the job of their dreams while they are on unemployment benefits.
Oh, this is an unrealistic, bleak plot twist, as often people on the dole aren't holding out for a dream job so much as deliberately avoiding a nightmare job, in the same way that not eating a writhing maggot's nest doesn't mean you're holding out for foie gras, perhaps just a hamburger. For his blunt, ignorant criticism of budget criticism, myself and the latest polls give Tony Abbott's performance 30 out of 100. Joining Mr. Abbott was backbencher George Christensen, seen here in his last role as a boy who wears goggles that protect him from reality, and who said in his criticism of budget backlash,
Aussies should do a tour of Asia and live like locals to put these first world complaints re-budget in perspective.
Oh, his simplistic storyline imagines a world where other people's terrible problems make your problems cease to exist, and that until Australia is in a worse state than the poorest countries in the world, the government can keep making it worse, and we should be grateful. For dialogue that fails to appreciate that we live here, where our problems are, he gets 2 out of 10. But he should be grateful because some other critics got the 0, so by his logic he's doing great. And finally, Amanda Vanston, most well known as ABC and Fairfax's token conservative, compared student protesters to
dictators who use their power to silence any criticism.
And she's right. Grubby student dictators shouldn't be trying to silence criticism. We should leave that to public figures like Amanda Vanston. After all, she was one of the authors of the terribly received Commission of Audit, so you can see why she's taking the criticism to heart. And that gives her a dictator score of 2.5 Palpatines. For The Roast, I'm Jazz Twemlow.
Thank you, Jazz. So after a fortnight of intense criticism, Abbott and co must be missing that sweet 6-year period where they could do nothing but criticise in opposition. Still, with a double dissolution on the table, if they play their cards right, they could be back there very soon.
Yeah, come on, Abbott. Everyone's bored of this budget. Call an election. I dares you. I reckon you'll win. Do it. Do it. Do it, do it, do it.
The amount of bandstone in here to shut this guy up.
Do it. Come on, do it. You can do it. Do it.